All right, everyone. Welcome to Lead Generation World Live. I hope you guys are all having a great day. Those folks over there in the UK, hopefully you had a great day. And welcome to the show. I'm glad you guys are able to make it. If you're watching live, you can comment, whether it's on YouTube or on LinkedIn. You can use the comments, say hello, ask Arin, our guest, some questions as well, or just participate with the conversation, which is always great. So feel free to add some comments as we have our own discussion over here and participate. I do want to mention we've got Lead Generation World London coming up. We've got a little over a month until we're at the show. It's going to be a great show. We've got a lot lined up. And our agenda is almost complete, and you can check that out on leadgenerationworld.com and take a look at what's happening there, and I'll obviously register as well. But hopefully we see some of you folks at the show. Let's see here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our guest, Arin Darcan. How are you?
Great, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to bring you on the podcast here, just kind of learn a little bit about what you're doing. You're going to be actually at Lead Generation World London as
I will
well.
be.
As a matter of fact, are you in London or where are you located?
I'm in Essex, so I'm about 30 minutes from London, roughly.
Got it. Okay. Is that where you're born and raised, out of curiosity,
Yep,
or?
yep, exactly. Yep, been here my whole life.
Great. Excellent. Well, what I usually do, which is kind of interesting before I bring on a guest, I sort of check out their LinkedIn profile, of course. I feel like I live on LinkedIn these days, which is cool. But I was checking out your profile and I noticed that you have a master's degree in physics, which I find really, really interesting because I always look towards this to see how people sort of got into the industry. And obviously, physics and marketing don't always go quite hand in hand. How did that occur? How did you go from that degree into working for an agency?
Yeah, good question. So I got my degree and I started a job as a fire engineer, and it sounds quite cool, but it's really not. It's really boring. And I just didn't enjoy it at all. Like the whole working for somebody for a salary, like I just didn't feel fulfilled. It just wasn't. I didn't enjoy it at all. And so I
Yeah.
kept trying to find these like little side hustles, and I was able to start some online stores, made a little bit of money. It was all good. And then I discovered a mastermind that teaches you how to start an agency, which is like, that was like the go-to. This was like I quit my job in 2018. And so in 2018, I found this mastermind and I saw guys in there posting, I made this much, I made that. And I was like, oh my God, if these guys can do it, why can't I do it? So I just went straight into the whole marketing world. And then obviously from the marketing world, it started getting quite saturated. And I felt like as I started to grow my agency, I feel like I'm the same as everyone else. And that's why I moved to the Team-Followup stuff, which was, okay, how can I do something different and really make an impact in the industry? And that's why I moved to Team-Followup.
Got it. So, well, before we get to Team-Followup, I'm just kind of curious a little bit more.
Yep.
I mean, you spent 4 years, right, with the agency. Is that accurate?
I spent probably like 3 years with
Okay.
the
Okay.
agency stuff.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, but a good amount of time. And what was sort of your focus there on the agency side?
It was
What
mainly e-com.
services were you
It,
doing?
it was it was
E-com?
e-com and lead gen. It was like a combination of both of them. It started off with e-com because it's way simpler just to send people to a funnel when they buy something, and the client makes money. Great. But then we started doing more and more lead gen. It was more like a full stack. That's what you could call it, full stack.
Yeah. Did you guys have specialties as far as driving that traffic? Either be paid search or media or email or just.
We didn't do cold. Like the only thing we focused really on was paid ads. But I wouldn't say we had like a niche or a specific system. It was, and that's why I didn't really enjoy it either, because anyone that wanted to pay us money to do their ads, like there was no real special.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were doing that, when you were driving leads, was that part of the reason how you got to doing Team-Followup? When you were
Yeah.
driving these leads, were agencies just not doing a great job at giving them a call back, or
That's
what was the
exactly it.
story
Yeah.
there?
So we would generate a bunch of leads, and we were doing a good job for the lead gen stuff, right? We were sending leads to people, and the client would be like, "Hey, we haven't got any appointments," and we're like, "Okay, well, let's go into, go high level, see what's going on, figure out what's happening." And then very quickly we can see that we have leads that have been in the account for 2 days and no one's even tried to phone them yet or even tried to text, just nothing. And it's like,
Yeah.
you go back to the client and it's like, "Hey, we saw that this lead hadn't been contacted. Reminder, you've got to phone your leads. Reminder, you've got to text your leads." And then it's just like this battle. It was like, "Oh, well, I'm really busy. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I don't have time to text them. Why aren't you texting them?" It's like, well, anyway, so we built out an in-house calling team, and we're able to solve that, and that's how we moved into the team follow-up stuff.
Got it. So how do you so just give me a little bit of that, background when you sort of start thinking about making that transition. Did you just take on a few, a specific partner at first and go, okay, how can I go ahead and follow up on these leads for that client? How did you sort of make that transition?
Yeah. So originally we built out an in-house calling team, started doing follow-up for our clients. It worked. Everyone was happy. Great. And then actually what ended up happening was that I had a few friends in the agency space that had the exact same problem. And they were like, "Hey man, look, like, I haven't got a huge budget, but I'm just like, do you reckon I could like use your calling team as well? Utilize it. I'll give you a little bit of money, whatever." And they were my friends. I was like, "Yeah, look, we'll try it out. No problem." And then we saw very quickly that we're able to replicate what I had done and do it in their agencies. And it was like, "Oh, okay." And obviously, I'm seeing this problem plaguing the whole agency industry, that people just aren't able to get the follow up done properly. And so I was like, right, well, what about if I just didn't do the agency stuff anymore, just focus entirely on this, doing a white label calling team and giving that to my clients and my agencies, partnering with them. And that's how we got to that, essentially.
Just curious, what do you find after dealing with, so many different, brands or clients that are now utilizing you or to make those phone calls? What do you think the main reason is for why these companies are not successful with calling out? Is it a lack of um, technology, a lead management system, or a lack of education on the sales side, or the market? Like, why do you think most of these companies do a horrible job at follow up?
Yeah. Do you mean on the agency side, or do you mean on the actual like client? Like,
For the companies that you're servicing now, which they struggle obviously with. There's a reason why they're coming to you for help.
yeah,
What
yeah.
do you find that sort of reason to be, that they can't quite do it internally?
So I'll go, because we work with agencies and we work with clients directly, right? So I'll give a reason for both. So the agency side is that a lot of agencies will try and do it in-house. They'll hire one VA, they'll try, or maybe hire two VAs at a push, and I'll try and tell them to do this and do that. But the problem is that once you get to even one or two VAs, is still a distraction. It's a massive distraction on your agency. You're trying to focus on generating leads for your clients, qualified leads at a good price for your clients. That's like what you're being paid for, right? Obviously, you've got to actually have the client reporting. You've got the whole management of the whole business, right? And then you're trying to add this extra piece, which is the VA calling, or the calling team, or whatever you want to call it, right? And
Hmm.
people think that that's a part of their agency, but really, it's like, trying to think of an analogy. It's like a Formula One race car also trying to carry wood, right?
Yeah.
Act like a,
Yeah.
it's like
Two
okay, like
totally different worlds. Yeah.
like a Formula One race car can technically carry, but like that's not what it's built for. That it's built for going as fast as it can. Get something
Yeah.
else to handle the carrying the wood. Don't try and combine them. And so so the biggest thing is that it just becomes a massive distraction. I've worked with some. I actually recently got paid to consult a multi seven-figure agency on their calling team, and the problems I found in there was just like, uh, I can go through them if you want me to, but like it probably takes too
Yeah.
long.
Tell me. I'm
Yeah,
curious. I'm
yeah, I
curious.
can go through it.
I'm
So,
curious of what you found.
yeah, so it's things like, so again, I'd say to the client, "Hey, like, so are your team phoning all leads within 5 minutes? Right? Like, what's going on with that?" And this
Yeah.
particular client is working with chiropractors. So they're doing the lead generation for chiropractors, and they're trying to phone the leads for chiropractors and put them in, right? And so I'm like, right, okay, are your team calling within 5 minutes? They're like, yeah, they are. I'm like, okay. And by the way, this client originally reached out to me because they noticed their appointment book rate was super low and they were struggling to book appointments. So I'm going through all the things. Are you phoning within 5 minutes? Are you phoning twice a day, every day for 7 days in a row?
Have you got someone replying to all texts when they, all this stuff I was going through with them. Yeah, we are. The problem is they just don't have visibility over it. So I go into their account and I spend a couple of hours just going through, and I've literally got about a 10-page sheet of every lead that didn't have, like, people just weren't getting phoned. People were taking 3 hours to get phoned, 4 hours to get phoned. They either weren't getting phoned or they weren't getting like just loads of these problems. And when I bring it up to them, they're like, oh, it's again, they just didn't understand. They didn't look. And it's ultimately what it comes down to is the fact that they haven't got accountability, right? So their team aren't being held accountable and their expectations on their team aren't clear enough. So they're saying to their team, hey, every lead that comes in, you've got to phone them straight away. Terrible expectations. That makes no sense. But what does that mean? Straight away, within work hours? Like, do you want me to stay up all night, every night? Like, what does that mean, right? So you need to start making clear expectations. Things like, okay, every lead that comes in, I expect you to phone within the first 5 minutes between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., let's say, right? If it's within them times, if you don't phone them within 5 minutes, I want you to tag me in some sort of channel, whatever it is. I want you to tag me and give me a reason, give me the name of the lead and the reason why it wasn't phoned within 5 minutes, right? And all of a sudden it starts keeping themselves, like they start being kept accountable, because first of all, they've got to tag you when they don't call within 5 minutes. Also, your expectations are very, very clear because you're telling them, hey, I want you to phone within 5 minutes every time. So does that make sense? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I went through with them and we found. And that's the thing is, this whole system, the whole management, it becomes a massive distraction. They're trying to focus on their leads, and all of a sudden now they've got this whole calling team. And when you're working with VAs in places like Dominican Republic, Colombia, wherever it is, the internet isn't always as good, the electricity isn't always as good, and then you've got people calling in. It just gets really messy. It becomes a massive HR issue, to be honest with you. And that's why my company thrives with being able to manage that. You then got the other side, which is the direct client side, right? So, for example, if I worked with a chiropractor directly, why would a chiropractor want to work with me directly? What's the issue that they see? The issue is that, again, it comes down to accountability and expectations. Their receptionists that they have just on either they're too busy and they just can't phone leads when they come in, or they just don't, they get told, hey, you should be phoning leads every day and trying to follow up, and they phone them once or twice and they just I can't bother anymore. Again, no accountability there. And also it comes down to the cost, to be honest with you, as well. For the cost of my service, like for the cost of a full-time receptionist to do this for you, we can do more stuff and do it for a quarter of the price of hiring a full-time receptionist. So if you're like a chiropractor just starting out, for example, and you are, or even if you're just like an online business that just needs help following up with leads, like you can either pay someone a full-time salary, or you can pay my team a quarter of that and get 24 hours coverage, all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, just going back to a couple things to note. I want to touch back on reporting, which you mentioned, but before that, one of the issues, what kind of CRMs or lead management systems or call management systems are some of these clients using or not using? Because obviously, like, in your example, that one agency, it sounded like they didn't have a really good insight into what was happening with the leads that were coming in, right? It didn't sound like there was distribution tracking, like somebody could actually distribute or mark a lead as called or uncalled or left a voicemail or whatever it may be. Is that part of the issue that you see too? They just don't have the technology to properly track some of this stuff?
Yep, 100%. They just don't have the reporting in place. Like, again, if I say to most agency owners, if I said to them right now, okay, what was your lead to appointment percentage over the last 30 days? Like, give me the exact, I don't want to hear, oh, I think it's around or roughly about, none of that. Like, give me the exact percentage of your leads that you generated converted to appointments. Most of them won't be able to tell you. Or if they do need to tell you, it'll be, give me 15 minutes to go into a report, find it, click on it. And like, if it takes too long to get into the report, people don't use it. People just stop looking at it because it becomes too much of a barrier to entry to actually look at the report. So it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you recommend any CRMs or lead management system platforms for them to use?
For sure, we use Go High Level. That's just the one that we do. So even if you don't use Go High Level and you wanted our help for whatever reason, we basically build you out a Go High Level account, and we can connect. Let's say you use Close.io or something, right? We can just connect to your Close.io, but all of our work, everything we do, all the calling, texting, all happens within Go High Level. It becomes very simple. For full transparency, the reporting isn't great, but I have a separate reporting dashboard that I build out for all my clients that takes the data from Go High Level and pushes it into a different reporting dashboard. And that's purely because of the fact that I want to be able to see data very clearly. I want my clients to be able to see data clearly. And Go High Level is great at what it does, but I find the reporting does let it down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I was going to, to lead into with reporting. What sort of are the detailed sort of that you look at as from a reporting standpoint when it comes to call campaigns? Obviously, contact rate and all that sort of stuff. But is there anything beyond that that is important that you look at as well?
So to be honest with you, the things that I like, we used to try and track things like how many people answer the phone and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Ultimately, the problem is with some reporting is that if it's too busy, you lose track of the actual the word KPI, the acronym KPI, key performance indicators, right? The problem with that is that everyone thinks everything's a KPI when it's not, right? Like KPIs are the key performance, they're not performance, they're the key performance indicators, right? So it's really important. So on our reporting, we don't look at, for example, how many people answer the phone. I don't care about that. I care about how many people booked an appointment. If that lead to appointment percentage drops below a certain threshold for that client, then I'm going to go further deep in. I'm going to investigate. Okay. And then I can Go High Level for that and see how many people actually answer the phone, how many leads, I can dive deeper into that. But from a key performance metric standpoint, I want to be able to see, I look at number of leads we've received, number of appointments. So obviously the appointment book percentages. I even track things like shows and no shows, right? I know that's not that's not my team's job to ensure that happens. However, if you're an agency owner and your client isn't getting shows, they're going to quit very soon, right? They're not going to retain because they don't care about how many books. They care about, and ultimately they care about sales. So if they're not getting any sales, that's another issue, right? And we actually do track revenue generated in sales inside of our report as well to provide as much value I can to the client. Does that answer the question? I think it does.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. No, I appreciate that. When you earlier, you also mentioned, I think you mentioned Dominican Republic, some different locations of areas where people could outsource to. Obviously, there's a lot of options from an offshore perspective of where companies can outsource their call center services. What's been your experience with different countries, and how has it gone for you as far as finding the best optimal centers that you utilize?
Yeah,
I have to imagine it's a pretty big learning curve too. I mean, like just because there's so many and so many different companies to try to decipher which one to use.
So we don't use any kind of HR companies, if that's what you mean. So we source everyone that we work with directly. We don't work with, like, we don't pay anyone to find people for anything, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So we just use like different ad platforms to find them. I'll be honest with you, this is actually we've done a really good job up to this point, but we've recently brought on Gym Launch. I don't know if you know Alex Hormozy and Gym Launch and that kind of stuff. So we recently brought on Gym Launch as a client, and they're growing really fast with us. And so getting to the point where we can be scaling with them is really like something that's, we really need to get the hiring super on point, right? So, and I think what it comes down to, a lot of it is the onboarding process. Making sure you've got a solid onboarding process that, with videos, explanations, like everything needs to be in there. I get a lot of my team when they first join me, they're like, Aaron, the reason why I stayed with you guys was because I could see from the very beginning how organized you were and how structured you were, and that made me feel so much more, not welcome, but confident in your systems and what you do. So onboarding is definitely a big thing. But I'm actually currently in the process of building out a whole hiring funnel. I'm actually kind of going to go quite crazy with it, I think, and really treat it do some crazy ads, I want to get a lot of people in, onboard them, even actually some cool stuff I've recently discovered, which is AI interview tools. So there's some tools where you get people to have an interview with an AI bot, and they listen to things like their accent, their tone of voice, how knowledgeable at certain things. You can track all that, give you a report, and so you can actually filter out completely automatically people from the get-go, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. All right, so all your the agents that work for you all work for you directly, is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly that. I don't use any agencies to source. Yeah.
Right. And they all call out of the same dialer platform, that sort of thing that you mentioned
so
earlier.
we all have that. So in Go High Level, we have different sub accounts, and so we'll phone within dial out of different sub accounts. Yeah.
So how's the challenge? Because I have to imagine it's challenging from an oversight perspective. Is it constant like quality control, making sure, scripts are being adhered to, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that is the biggest issue, right? Working with human beings. Humans are notorious at making a lot of mistakes. And so it's just about, I believe that half the battle is making sure people know that you are constantly doing quality assurance on their calls. If they think they're not, like if they think you're not doing it, they won't put the effort in. It's just humans just it's nothing against them. You know, they just like, if they can get paid for doing less work, everyone's going to do that at all times, right? So it's just making sure like, the quality assurance, like it's doing random checks, having a dedicated appointment setter trainer to have one-on-one calls with people, give feedback, that kind of stuff, constantly training the team. And also a lot of it, to be honest with you, is self-policing as well. A client will say, hey, I listened to this call, I wasn't happy with this for this reason. Or I listened to this call and this was a great call, I loved it, like this person did great. And so we get that feedback from the clients, we have it internally, and together we're able to do that. And just a quick side note as well, tracking each person's individual performance is also very important. So, and for me, it's not just about tracking lead to appointment percentage. Obviously, it's a very easy to say, right, who booked the most appointments? Okay, great. Well, they're going to get the bonus or whatever else, right? The problem is every account has different lead quality. So you might get one account where they generate only 50 leads in a month, but every single one of them leads is being gone for a 5-page survey, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get way more people booked in from them 50 compared to someone that's generated 500 leads just through a Facebook lead form and, like ask for name, email, phone number, that's it, right? So it's not fair to do it that way. So we have like a special system where we take into account things like the appointment book rate. We also take into account things like show rate, right? Although we don't directly affect the show rate, if my team have done a bad job on the call, but they still book someone in, right? Well, then they're going to not show up. The lead's not going to show up. And that again affects us. So I give bonuses. Like, so we've got some kind of crazy, like a metric that we use. It takes into account percentages, the show rate, that kind of stuff. And the reason we do that is because I also don't want my team just booking in appointments, even when the person's not interested or whatever else, because do you mind if I tell a really quick story that I recently?
Yeah, please.
So apparently, I heard this from an agency friend. So apparently back in like the early 1900s, when the British still were in charge of, when they still controlled India, they had a massive cobra problem, right? And so what they started doing was saying to people, look, if you give us, if you hunt a cobra and you bring it to us and you give us a dead cobra, we'll give you, let's say $1,000 or whatever it was, right? And then what ended up happening was that over time, they started killing cobras. It all went perfectly. But then over time, people started actually farming cobras, right? They started setting up farms for cobras. Then they'd kill them, take them to the British government and go, hey, look, I killed a cobra, give me $1,000. And in the end, they actually tripled the number of cobras, right? Inside of India, rather than reducing the number. And so the reason I'm saying this story is that if I was to focus only on lead to appointments, like that's not actually tying into what I want. What I want is the client to actually get a sale. So really, maybe I should even go as far as tracking the sales, of every single client we work with, and then attributing that back to the appointment setter, because that's what we care about. So yeah, It's just got to be careful with what you're rewarding your setters on.
Yeah, definitely. How quick are you? Still staying on the staffing sort of subject for just a second. How quick are you to? What's your process when you find somebody that's underperforming? Obviously, there's probably some retraining that you do, but how long do you keep that? How long is your leash, I guess, is the question, when it comes to maybe somebody that's not quite performing?
Yeah, it really depends. I think it's really important to not have a fire culture. I want to be in a situation like, if you start firing people without notice and you just say, look, I'm done with this now, whatever else, what ends up happening is that, it's again, all my opinion, right? What I think ends up happening is that the other appointment setters start to become quite fearful of their jobs. They think they might get fired at any point, right? So then what they start doing is they start behaving in a very selfish way. They stop sharing information between each other because they want to be they always want to outrun the last person, right? Because they don't want to get fired. So with me, it's very much being very honest and open. It's like, hey guys, right, look, like you're underperforming. Like, what do you? And I'll ask them, like, what do you think the problem is? Like, why do you think you like work with me? You know, like, it's not just like telling them what to do. It's like, is there a problem? Is there a problem at home? Is there a problem with the family? You know, are you stressed out? Like, what is the issue? And we'll work with them for a little while. And if it gets to the point where we can't do it, I will try and move them to a different role in the company if I can. So, for example, if we need some admin tasks done, I'll take them off the calls and just put them on admin tasks. And then also when we do, if we ever do have to fire someone, I make sure that I tell the team of what happened, why it happened, and just so people don't get fearful or anything like that. But yeah, it really depends. To answer your question, how long's the leash? It really depends on
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that insight. All right, let's get back to calls and what what processes that gets to a successful contact. You guys are obviously making phone calls. Have you guys also implemented SMS and text messaging? Text messaging.
Yeah, we do all that. We doubled. So to kind of go through like the list of what we do. So the first thing is that when a new lead comes in 24 hours a day, we'll phone up that new lead within 5 minutes and we'll double dial them, right? Double dialing is really important. The reason why double dialing is important is because most telemarketers won't double dial because their systems just don't do that. And so double dialing also breaks through the do not disturb on an iPhone. If you've got do not disturb on, unless you change the settings or whatever else the standard settings is, double dial will break through the do not disturb because your phone thinks it must be an emergency because you phone back to back, right?
Right.
And also if you are phoning someone back to back, like I said, most people are like, wow, this must be important. I better answer it, right? So that's the first thing. Obviously speed to lead, very important. MIT and HubSpot did a study on this where they looked at, I believe it was 6 companies across a 3-year period. And they looked at things like how response times affected the actually getting the appointment. And ultimately, don't quote me on the exact stats, but ultimately phoning someone within the first 5 minutes, you have a 10 times higher chance of getting hold of them compared to an hour later, which is kind of like insane. So
and I think that report even said, within a minute, it even was like 20 times that, right? So
it's insane. Yeah. It's as fast as you can is what you should be doing. We then have, so that's 24 hours a day is what we do for that. So then again, it doesn't have to be 24 hours. Every client's different,
Right.
We then do, if the lead doesn't answer the phone, we'll then phone them twice a day, every day for 7 days in a row, which again, it's very consistent in what we do. Along with that, we'll send out the automatic text messages. What we find works really well is like some GIFs and pictures, like even like playing, having a bit of fun with it, putting like if it goes 5 days in and still no reply, put a little picture of a skeleton at a keyboard, little stuff like that can be quite fun. And that can help get responses. Also, another thing we like to do, I got this from Chris Voss, where, for example, let's say you are working in the fitness space, right? And someone maybe in their form told you they want to lose 30 pounds, right? A really powerful question is, hey, Simon, am I right in thinking you've given up on trying to lose 30 pounds now? Right? Because when you ask someone if you've given up on it, it's like they want to be like, no, I haven't given, whatever they start the conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Things like a 24/7 SMS response as well. If someone does text in, we want to be replying pretty quickly, and it's not as important as the calls, but we still want to be replying as soon as we can, and having a conversation with them.
Are those texts? Let me sorry to just interrupt you. Are those texts automated, or are they all sort of from a live person? How do you guys?
It's a mix of both. So if when someone responds to us, I've got a live team on standby replying to text. If no one's responding to us, like, we do send out the automatic text messages as well.
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
You're good. Then we also do things like appointment confirmations to avoid no-shows, right? So we'll phone up the lead 24 hours before, like if someone's booked an appointment, and say, hey, we saw you got an appointment for tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. We also do things like callback requests. So let's say we phone someone at, I don't know, 11 a.m. and they say, oh, I'm busy at work right now. Give me a call back at 8 p.m. tonight. Whatever time it is, again, we can call them whatever time they want, which again helps with getting them on the phone and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then in terms of text messages, like free gifts can be really good. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you find that more and more people are responding sort of to the text versus the calls? What have you sort of seen with as far as answer rates over the last few years, and where do you think it's going to continue to go?
I think answer rates. Yeah, great question. I've never really thought about like how answer rates, or how I thought answer rates would be affected over
the course of the next few years. It's
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously like people like I know I don't generally answer the phone unless I potentially know the person, you know, and but maybe it's popping up on my um a name of some sort's popping up on my phone or the caller ID. Obviously I see all text messages and may respond accordingly that way. But I just didn't know, from what you're seeing. And granted, the people that you're calling generally are asking to be called. So, that may
all of them.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that might be a little bit different.
Yeah,
But
we're not doing
even
any
then,
sort of cold calling or anything like that. We're literally just phoning up warm leads that are generated that,
yeah,
and for some reason, people will submit their information, but they won't book in a call. And like we bridge that
yeah,
gap between the booking a call and the thing. And the other thing I was going to say was, you mentioned the caller ID.
yeah,
So that's a big thing. Like spam likely is a
right.
big problem that we have sometimes with some clients. And so it's really important just to make sure that you are registering your phone number with the correct places. That can really help putting your, for example, CNAM, ATP messaging. There's always different things you can do to verify that you're a real business. And you can even have it so you have your caller ID pop up. You could have lead gen world or whatever, as the caller ID. And then when someone sees that, that'll be the thing. Also, Go High Level brought out a really cool feature recently called Lead Connect, and what you're able to do is actually connect a previous business number to the Go High Level account, and what it'll do, it will pass the caller ID through. So let's say I'm phoning from a random Go High Level number.
Mm-hmm.
If I've connected, let's say a doctor's surgery, right, to that Go High Level account, when I phone from that random Go High Level number, it will actually show as the number of the doctor's surgery. So if the doctor's surgery's already got all that set up, it can just pass straight through and becomes very, very easy to sort that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that makes a big difference as
Oh,
when it comes to Yeah.
100%.
You mentioned some different types of data earlier in your previous answers. Do you guys also source the data, or is that data generally coming from your partner, your agencies, the companies that you're calling on behalf of?
Yeah. So we do you mean like the reporting data? Is that
No, the call data, the leads that you're calling on, the inquiries and the data that you're getting to call out on.
that's
Do you
all generated
guys
by the client.
source that stuff, or is it sourced by the brand or the partner that you're working with, the
Yeah, so
brand or
it's sourced by the agency or the direct client or whoever we're working with. They're responsible for their own ads. We don't run any ads or anything like that. They will just run their ads, and then we will phone up or new leads that are coming in. We don't source like cold emails or cold code. We don't do nothing like that. We
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
phone up the warm leads. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you're strictly the service provider now, not generating anything from a marketing side at this
Exactly.
point in time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly that. I've completely stopped all that now. Yeah.
it's kind of nice being in the middle, right?
Oh,
Versus
it's pros and cons of both. Like sometimes I've got clients that are really enjoying the service, it's absolutely smashing it, but then all of a sudden one day their leads dry up a little bit, and so they have to pause. And then if I was running the
right,
ads,
sure.
I could just do it all for there would be no pausing. But then you've got the problem. It's all swings and roundabouts. It's all different pros and cons, and grass is always greener, and all them stuff. All
Yeah.
that stuff.
Let me go back to another couple things before we wrap up here. But tell me again. Obviously, you have a number of employees that are making outbound calls for you. Where are they generally located?
Yeah, honestly, they're all over the world. I've got
Yep.
the countries off the top of my head, the countries we're currently working with. Got Dominican Republic, we have Venezuela, we have Colombia, we have Mexico, we have the Philippines, we have Ethiopia. We had one in Jamaica, but I'm not sure if we're still working with her. Yeah, they're mostly
Yeah.
South America, But we've got
And
also
why is there a reason why that sort of worked out that way, where they're mainly in South America?
Well, I actually on purposely try to avoid I don't want one location for
Yeah.
everyone. Like for example, I know some teams they're like all of our people are from Mexico, and it's like okay, great, but what happens if a riot breaks out in Mexico? What happens if electric? What if there's a storm and
Yeah.
like a hurricane goes? That can't happen. So that's why, and it's actually a great example. So I started sourcing from the Philippines originally, and this was back in end of 2021. And there was a huge storm that happened in the end of 2021 in the Philippines. And like half my workforce, not even more than probably about 3/4 of my workforce was, and lucky enough, I just started Team-Followup, so I didn't have a huge number of clients. But yeah, there was a huge storm and it wiped a bunch of the workforce out. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So that's why I've always tried to, like, I've got people in Africa, people in Asia, people in South America, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Are most of your clients that you work with in the UK?
No, most of them are in the US.
In the
Literally,
US. Okay.
I'd even say all my, I'm trying to think if I've got any UK clients at the moment. I don't think I've got any UK clients. They're all in the US, I believe.
Gotcha. And was that by design or was
Yeah.
that by yeah. Tell me
Yeah,
about that.
it's just like, so the first thing is that my team all have American accents. So if you phone a British person with an American accent, they're going to assume you're from a bank or you're from a telemarketing. Like they're not going to. It's not going. If I'm calling for a local dentist in the UK, they're going to be like, "Why have you got an American accent? It doesn't make sense." The next thing is that the time zones and things like that. Like, it's just easy if you just focus on one continent to begin with, and then just focus on that.
Yeah. All right. So tell me a little bit about where you see Team-Followup going to. You know, what's the future for you guys? Are there any, developments that you sort of see what you're working on that would be new to the company?
Yeah. At the moment, it's just
that you're okay sharing with us.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. In the last year and a half, I've been literally focusing on the products. Like, I've done a bit of marketing, but most of my clients do come from referrals, and like, I've just been working on fixing systems, fixing reporting, I want to get the product as good as it can be. If the product is insane, you don't have to worry about the marketing and the sales. Like, it's just because the product will sell itself, right?
Yep.
But that's really what I'm trying to get to. I've been doing that for, like I said, the last year and a half. And now I'm at a point where I'm just trying to scale this as much as possible. So obviously partnering with companies like Gym Launch, obviously they're very well known, and that's been really great. That's been awesome. And so I'm just trying to find some, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really got it's just growing it, and I'm excited to work with some big agencies and some big clients.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Are there specific? My guess is I know you're relatively agnostic as in what kind of companies or products or services that you work with, but is there a certain industries that you are working more heavily in right now that seem to be you're finding a lot of success in?
Yeah, the gym, the fitness space has been great. We found, honestly, really, like, I've got some clients who will be in a niche that will absolutely smash it and it works really well. And I've got other clients that will do the exact same niche and then they won't work.
Interesting.
And again, it comes down to the lead generation, right? It doesn't come like, if the client isn't good enough at generating leads, or they're generating poor quality leads, it doesn't matter what my team does. We can't get booked appointments because they're not qualified. They're poor quality. So it's a lot of local stuff like med spas, chiropractors, gyms. We've got like dentists. We also work with like roofers, HVAC, a lot of like make money online as well. We've got a client that does an Airbnb course. They've got an Airbnb mastermind. They get leads coming through. It's all online, and we just phone them up, put them in, and we've literally. Insurance has been a really big one. I actually got a video testimonial from a client in the insurance about 2 weeks ago now. We've literally, from what he tells me, we 5x'd his revenue from working with us. He just wasn't able to follow up. It's just, that's another thing. Just a quick side note is that so many people focus on what's our cost per lead. It's got to get cost per lead down. Like, that's like the big thing, but they forget like the whole picture, right? So like, if we can double your appointments booked with our system, that's essentially half in your appointment book. Like, that's essentially half in your appointment cost. So like, don't worry about the cost per lead all the time and trying to get that down in the ad account. Maybe look at a bigger picture and see how can you squeeze more out of the actual orange rather than just focus on cost per lead. That's
and focusing on that end goal, right? Which is a cost per sale, whatever that sale is, right?
Exactly.
And being able to tie that to a marketing campaign is really, really important to be able to optimize and scale and all that sort of stuff. I know I find so many times buyers will focus on that cost per lead, which is really irrelevant at the end of the day. However 100%. Much it costs, it really just how much does that cost for you to drive that sale. So yeah, really, really, really good point. I've got your website up here, but what's the best way to get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, to be honest with you, add me on Facebook. That's all good. It's just my name. Arin Darcan, Darcan. Find me on Facebook, add me, and message me there. Or go to our website, check out our testimonials, and booking a call with us there. That would also be great. They're the two main places, really. Yeah.
Great. Also put up your LinkedIn
Yep,
profile
LinkedIn.
here real quick, and your name so they can find you. Take that and also find you on LinkedIn and Facebook. Well, good, man. I really appreciate you hopping on, and it's great to learn more about you and Team-Followup. And I look forward to seeing you in London in about a month and a half.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Any last words that you want to leave us with, or?
Yeah, just the final thing, I guess, is just make sure that you're following up with your leads. Like
Yeah,
it's so simple, but it's not easy, right? Like it's a very simple thing. Just phone your leads, put them in. But it's like going to the gym. People will do it a little bit and they give up, they can't bother anymore, and whatever else. And
yeah.
so, and it can be quite tedious, but it's necessary to really scale your company.
Excellent. All right, Arin. Well, it's a pleasure to speak with you. And I will see you in London in a month and a half. And everyone who is listening, thanks for joining. We'll see you guys all next time.
Appreciate it.